Hey there. You're listening to True Story No Cap. Real stories, no exaggeration, no lies. Just the raw, unfiltered moments life throws our way. Relax, lean back, and let's get started. Sarah was known as a woman of her time, confident, perceptive, capable of relying on herself. At least for most of her life, she saw herself exactly that way, and the view of those around her seemed to confirm the correctness of these judgments. She looked upon her married life without illusions. She needed a solid family to give life in the future to one, or perhaps two children, born of a man whom she loved, respected, and whose affection was mutual. Their union with Mike lasted 5 years. During that time, of course, much happened between them. Step by step, with varying success and understanding, and not without internal losses, they navigated those now proverbial, crises of married life. They learned to yield to each other, mastered the art of living together, shared a roof, joys, and sorrows. The first turning point came when romantic impulses gave way to the pressing necessity of preparing dinner daily, consisting of meat patties and mashed potatoes. Moreover, Sarah was tasked with creating these very patties, and Mike with tasting them with an expression of utmost bliss. In the kitchen, Sally was more of a novice, having begun to master culinary secrets only after their engagement, and, admittedly, given this, the one sitting at the table sometimes required even more courage and fortitude than the one standing at the stove. The tremulous anticipation of being able to touch a loved one's body was replaced by the awareness of the constant presence nearby of an equally demanding body, and the excitement of anticipating a meeting after even a short separation gave way to the firm knowledge that a meeting would inevitably occur, regardless of the momentary desire. In short, the light veil of romance and the courtship period, as it should, dissolved into the harsh realities of everyday life. They managed to overcome this crisis, especially since over time Sally's patties acquired a much more pleasant taste. They managed to reach a peaceful agreement on a clear time for watching TV series and films, and to ensure greater comfort during nighttime hours. Considering each other's sleep habits, they acquired a spacious bed. It proved more difficult to agree on the regularity of daily meetings. Here, the situation had its own specifics. For some time, Sally worked as an operator at a round-the-clock gas station and was periodically absent from home for entire days, which provided ample material for jokes among their mutual acquaintances and friends. Mike just smiled understandingly in response, and at such moments would say, "Well, how else? Why do Sarah and I have such harmony? Because we live 1 day on, 3 days off, so we simply don't have time to get tired of each other." Sarah listened to these witticisms with a restrained smile. Then followed another crisis, predicted by more experienced spouses and, more importantly, confirmed by official psychological science, the crisis of the 3rd year of married life. Here, everything turned out to be much more serious. Having gotten used to each other to such an extent that appearance ceased to be of fundamental importance, they were rapidly approaching the loss of mutual interest. Sarah, recalling her intention to live with Mike until at least their golden anniversary, resolutely rushed to save the situation. Unexpectedly for everyone, she cut her vacation short by 2 weeks. On the first day, Mike, with a look of martyrdom, ascended to the deck and suddenly saw a dazzling blonde with lush curves and long legs, one of which, meaning the leg, effectively peeked out from a thigh-high slit in her dress. Moreover, to borrow a phrase from Sally's favorite romance novels, a gentle breeze played softly in her hair, where sunbeams were entangled. Taken aback, Mike choked on the beer he was just sipping, and the next second he almost drowned altogether, realizing that this astonishing beauty was remarkably familiar and was smiling exclusively at him. Pulling in his stomach, which, frankly, had been causing him considerable grief lately, Mike, glancing around uncertainly, smiled back. The blonde took off her sunglasses, and before him stood his lawful wife. In short, the marriage was saved. For another couple of years, Sarah felt quite content living with Mike. Household chores didn't seem burdensome to her. Mike was a simple, ordinary man. He wasn't a hero from romantic sagas, living with anguish for his beloved and dreaming only of one thing, to die with her name on his lips. He simply wanted to quietly share his life with this chosen woman. He was a man without pretensions, who loved to eat heartily and deliciously, while preferring not to notice his rounding sides, who adored spending time on the sofa in the company of a TV remote, and who always considered his wife's opinion. But then something broke. A crack, barely noticeable, appeared in their relationship, gradually widened and finally turned into an abyss into which all her hopes and plans plummeted. Who knows what caused it? Outwardly, nothing changed. They still came home, ate, drank, changed clothes, and went to bed. Then they got up, left, and upon returning, ate and slept again. And so it went, day after day. Sarah reread all available books on the psychology of marital bonds. Specialists unanimously insisted on the vital importance of maintaining emotional contact. But in order to maintain something, that something must exist. Perhaps this very contact with Mike had never existed. Honestly, she didn't remember her heart joyfully fluttering or skipping a beat at the thought of him, and Mike had never blushed with happiness when handing her the customary bouquet for her birthday or the 8th of March. Although, to be fair, their first meeting occurred under rather amusing circumstances which, with some stretch, could even be called romantic. They met at a City Day celebration. Sarah had been living in this city for 3 years, and a considerable portion of that time she had dedicated to mastering the art of walking in high heels. Having been born and lived in a village until she was 20, Sally was completely unskilled in this. Moreover, having spent her entire childhood and youth in sneakers and flip-flops, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't confidently walk on a heel even half the height of her ultimate goal for a very long time. Learning was essential no matter what. In her view, the ability to walk in high heels was a sign of initiation into civilization, along with the habit of brushing one's teeth, drinking bitter coffee with an expression of bliss, and confidently tapping fingers on a computer keyboard. Finally, after many months of titanic effort, she felt ready to conquer the world. On that festive evening, she triumphantly paraded through the city streets in wonderful suede shoes, with dizzyingly high heels. Sarah felt significantly taller, slimmer, more attractive, and most importantly, about 300% more city-like than usual. "Sally, it's late, we're going home," her friends said, who incidentally were prudently wearing sneakers. Frankly, Sarah's feet were aching mercilessly. Her right heel was starting to sting, but she decided to crown her triumph by attending the fireworks display on the embankment. "Well, go ahead. I'll walk around a bit more," the beauty said resolutely, trying to make her voice sound confident. And she walked around until, in the end, hobbling on legs trembling with fatigue and chafed feet, a heel twisted treacherously with a terrible crunch, as if it were her tibia breaking, and Sally, feeling a sharp pain in her ankle, sank limply onto the nearest bench. Her leg ached unbearably and seemed to be swelling. Her phone, intended to capture the striking beauty against the cityscapes, had long since died and gone silent. Sally looked around helplessly. "Excuse me, can I help you with something?" a quiet, delicate male voice asked. "Can you? You absolutely must!" Sally almost shouted and, involuntarily groaning, grabbed her ankle. A few steps away from her, in the evening twilight, stood a man. "There's an emergency room just around the corner, not far from here," he continued. "You should go there." "What's that?" Sarah asked cautiously, her imagination already painting a picture full of romance and allure. A man literally bursting into the doctor's office, gently carrying a fair-haired diva in his arms. Damn, I knew I should have curled my hair. There he is, caring, carefully lowering her onto the couch and sitting beside her with worry on his face, and then carrying her out of the office the same way, with everyone sitting in the corridor giving them joyful and admiring smiles. And suddenly his voice intruded upon these incredibly vivid images. The man, as if reading her thoughts, said, "Excuse me, my dear young lady, I would gladly carry you to the emergency room and back wherever you need to go, but I simply won't be able to lift you," he mumbled, embarrassed. Sarah stared at him in astonishment, then distractedly at herself, or rather at what fell within her field of vision, then back at the man, as if estimating her size against his arms, and burst out laughing. The man, who introduced himself as Mike, nevertheless placed himself at her disposal as an assistant. True, he played the role not of a carrier, but rather a support. He skillfully and firmly bandaged her ankle, helped her hobble to the emergency room. And when she came out of the doctor's office limping, she was surprised to find her recent savior sitting on a chair by the door. "How are you, Sally?" he asked shyly. "I'm fine, I'll live," she promised optimistically. "Sally, how about we live together?" Mike blurted out and blushed painfully. "Well, not right away, of course, not now, but generally, maybe someday you'll agree." And so it happened that they met, felt mutual sympathy, and tied the knot. Mike was a native city dweller, had a profession that was not very profitable at first but reliable, a civil engineer, a not too spacious but cozy apartment, and represented a quite attractive option for a serious relationship. Mike's appearance didn't impress anyone. He didn't have bottomless eyes of a rare, mesmerizing color or curly dark hair falling onto a high forehead. Although his forehead, it must be admitted, was indeed high, of an antique cast. Rather the opposite. Despite having just passed 30, early bald spots were already gleaming on his head, and his t-shirt treacherously outlined a slightly protruding belly. "But we've never had curly hair in our family," he would laugh, patting his stomach expressively. He had ordinary brown eyes, a snub nose, and a habit of squinting due to already deteriorating eyesight. Sarah, who had arrived to conquer the big city from a tiny village, assessed her attributes and opportunities quite objectively. A school diploma, a year working as a secretary in the village council, and 3 years of institute studying accounting, which she dropped out of a couple of months ago. This was extremely little to claim anything significant, even considering her long legs and pretty face, and the upbringing given to the orphan Sally by her grandmother, completely out of sync with the spirit of the times, burdened with many rules, restrictions, and moral barriers, would never have allowed her to use those very legs and face for selfish purposes, much to her regret. Therefore, Sarah was living on sufferance in a student dormitory, working as a salesperson in a round-the-clock store and agonizingly wondering if she could glue the hole in her winter boot. So, upon hearing, "Sally, I love you, marry me," she barely hesitated. And now, after 5 years of this very life, it suddenly became piercingly clear to her that the person beside her was not the right one, that she was unbearably bored. Mike was attentive, considerate, agreed with her on almost everything. At times, it seemed his main concern was whether she had put on warm tights under her jeans. "Mikey, you're just like my grandmother, honestly." Sarah would fend off her husband's overprotectiveness. "I feel like I married a nanny. Where's the passion, the frenzy, the jealousy?" "Sally, you knew you weren't marrying a Casanova?" Mike would laugh. "As for passion, I passionately want you not to freeze while waiting at the bus stop. That's all my passion." "You know, I don't even understand what's happening to me," she confided to her only close friend Lucy. "I'm bored, you understand? Even during intimacy, I feel like he's tucking a blanket around me on the fly." "Are you crazy? He can't get enough of you and you're still being difficult," Lucy snorted. I don't want to be breathed on. Or rather I do, but not like that," Sally said angrily. All right, watch out, you don't mess things up," Lucy snorted. Soon she met a man, the complete opposite of Mike. Steve was decisive, impulsive, assertive. That same evening, he suggested she come back to his place. Losing her head, her heart pounding, she agreed and, trembling with excitement, entered a stranger's apartment. Right in the hallway, Steve lunged at her. She broke free and, with the ringing in her ears continuing, quickly ran down the stairs. That's passion, Sarah decided, and demonstratively left her phone with missed calls from Steve in a prominent place. "Sally, please answer it," Mike asked after the phone lit up with an incoming call for the 5th time in a row. "Aren't you interested in who it is?" Sarah asked, a challenge in her voice. "Well, I assume if it concerns me, you'll tell me yourself," Mike shrugged. "Well, I don't know," Sarah replied in a rather unpleasant tone. In short, everything became perfectly clear. She no longer wished to live with Mike. That meant divorce and returning to her maiden name. What would become of her if she was left alone? She would turn 30 in a couple of years. No children. She had given up everything that seemed alive, bright, interesting, everything she had always dreamed of, herself 5 years ago. True, the apartment remained. The very one where she and Mike lived. And knowing Mikey, one could assume he would leave the apartment to her, but walls, floor, and ceiling wouldn't free her from oppressive loneliness, from the feeling that all opportunities were missed, that she was late everywhere. What to do next, Sarah truly didn't know, but she knew with absolute certainty what she would never do if a catastrophe did strike her life and she and Mike decided to part ways. She wouldn't sit on the windowsill, sadly watching raindrops crawl down the glass and feeling her cheeks become as wet as the window outside. And she wouldn't cry at the sight of their joint wedding photo, where they were so young, beautiful, laughing, holding hands, as if ready to jump and fly away together to paradise. And she certainly wouldn't start sorting through his shirts, remembering that he wore this white one at the last birthday, and this one, with the thin pink and blue stripe, was especially attractive on their last anniversary, when she felt like the happiest wife and was planning to live a whole life with this man. and it would be utterly unworthy of respect if she suddenly started checking her phone's call log every half hour to remember when he last called, knowing perfectly well that that very call was unforgivably, criminally long ago. No, she would be completely different. No one could imagine her in the role of a deserted wife. She would be strong and proud. She would not stoop to scandals, quarrels, and mutual accusations. She would simply express regret, easily and gracefully acknowledging her possible shortcomings, and wish him, Mike, a happy future life. Then she would close the door behind him and sigh, perhaps heavily, but freely. And anyway, she would finally do the renovation they had been putting off their entire married life. Oh yes, she must remember to stop using the words we, our, joint, and other relics of the past. So, she would renovate the apartment and then her wardrobe, and buy that very white suit she saw in the store 6 months ago, which her husband had categorically objected to at the time, simply because she liked it and it looked great on her, paying no attention to its price or impracticality. Then she, free and proud, would move on, and everyone around would smile at the sight of her and whisper softly to each other, "That's Sarah. How beautiful she is, despite everything. What dignity. What courage in the face of adversity and injustice. And him? Well, he's just an idiot for letting such a treasure slip away." All this so captivated her rich imagination that she played out the scenes of separation and everything that would follow many times in her head, and she played it out until it happened. They say, be careful what you wish for, and it's no coincidence. The very thing she had imagined so many times happened. Mike said he was leaving and filing for divorce. "Sally, this can't go on anymore. I see that you... In short, it's better for us to separate. It will be better for both of us. I decided to do this so you could be free," he squeezed out during their last conversation. "Are you in love with another woman?" she asked, instantly stepping into the role of victim. "Of course. You've had someone else for ages and you don't have the courage to admit it. I knew you would leave me." Mike sighed heavily and said, "No, I don't have anyone else and couldn't. And I don't want to leave you. However, if it makes it easier for you, you can blame me for anything." He ran a hand tiredly over his face, as if trying to wipe something unpleasant, sticky, from it. Then he looked at her strangely, flinched as if remembering something and deciding to say it, but remained silent and left. And here she is, finally sitting on that damn windowsill. She doesn't even remember how she got there, and sobbing. Sobbing so hard that she can't even see the very raindrops that, as if mocking her, are drumming against the glass. Mikey's shirts, hanging peacefully in the closet, she had already gone through and even pressed one of them to her face, though it wasn't quite clear why, because there was no scent of the until recently beloved person left after washing, but they were Mikey's shirts, and the fact that they continued to hang in the closet as if nothing had happened, while he would never be beside her again, made her unbearably sad. The wedding photograph, the very one Mike had once jokingly called a leap into the unknown, had also been taken off the nail several times already. Resolutely removing the frame, she suddenly had the persistent feeling that a hole had appeared on the wall because of it, just like the one in her own life. She lacked the strength or the courage to look into this void yet. Let it hang after all. It's just a photograph. Sarah tried to show courage and heroism, looking at the happy groom's face and feeling the sobs rising to her throat again. As for the phone, here she managed to stick to her resolutions. She didn't look at the call log. Instead, she stared for hours at his number and the photo attached to it. Catching herself in this self-deception, she angrily turned off the phone, only to involuntarily turn it back on a few minutes later. Amazing? Despite her grandiose plans for physical and emotional liberation, she didn't want to throw away the furniture bought together with Mike, and even the rather absurd, in her opinion, wallpaper imitating scratched and peeling boards, which for some reason he terribly liked. She no longer wanted to tear up this white suit either, but if she thought about it, why did she need it? Firstly, she would have to wash it every other day, and secondly, Mikey was right when he said that in white she looked twice as white as she actually was. Hold on. Was she regretting the breakup? No, it couldn't be. No, of course not. It was just stupid female fear of loneliness, nothing more. And Mike? Well, Mike finally did something truly manly, perhaps for the first time since the day they met, when he played the role of a carrier for her. She needed to stop thinking about it, stop feeling sorry for herself, She needed to act as she had imagined many times, become proud and calm, and she needed to change her surroundings so she wouldn't constantly bump into the wreckage of her past life. Exactly. She needed to go on vacation, finally give herself a luxurious life, distract herself, relax, and then think about what to do next. A few days later, she was lying on the seashore, feeling the gentle breeze on her skin and squinting at the soft rays of the setting sun. Sarah, oh my God, is that really you? Amazement and joy rang in a tall woman's voice. A large, full woman in a colorful pareo that made her look even more massive was staring directly at Sally. Her bleached, damp hair stuck out in all directions, and a colorful paper patch sat on her nose, intended to protect the most prominent part of her body from sunburn. However, even without all this beach paraphernalia, Sally would hardly have recognized Anna, her old school friend, right away. They hadn't seen each other since they finished school. "Don't you recognize me?" the woman exclaimed. "I do, but with great difficulty." "What happened to you, Annie?" Sarah wanted to say, but of course she said something completely different aloud. "Oh, well, I'll be. Unbelievable. Anna, of course, I recognized you right away. Well, you haven't changed at all." "You're lying, of course," Anna stated habitually. Arguing with this assertion was pointless. When Anna left home, she wasn't a reed, but she was still a slender creature with appealing curves and dark blonde curls. All that remained of the former girl were her voice and the habit of tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Well, Sarah, you don't have to try with me," Anna laughed. "I know everything about myself, just 50 extra kilos and centimeters." She waved her hand. "But you, I must admit, look simply stunning. So slim, it's amazing. Well done." Anna looked over her former friend with sincere approval. Sarah smiled involuntarily. After all, it wasn't in vain that she and Mike had been diligently getting in shape for the past year, and even announced a competition. Who could lose more excess weight in 6 months? The prize was announced as serious. The winner could choose the location of their next vacation. Mike was even in the lead for a while, having shed his famous sides and losing in biceps, and joyfully promised his wife that she would spend a month's vacation sitting side by side with him on the riverbank with a fishing rod in her hands. Sally was not at all attracted to such a pastime, and she pushed harder, leaving Mike with his pathetic 5 lost kilos far behind. Suddenly returning to thoughts of her husband, she angrily shook her head, smiled at Anna. "Listen, Anna, let's go somewhere and talk, shall we? We haven't seen each other in so many years." "Of course, with pleasure. I'll just warn my folks and we'll go." Anna nodded. "Oh, right," Anna sighed. "Unlike you, I'm here with a backpack and trailers." She chuckled, but it didn't sound very cheerful. "In short, with my husband and kids. I already have 2, can you imagine? 2. "Oh, Anna, you're amazing. I'm so happy for you." Sally grabbed her friend's hand and shook it. "Found something to be happy about," Anna waved her hand. "It's not a vacation with 2 little boys, plus a third one on top of that. He's long grown up, but sometimes he behaves even worse than the kids." "Are you talking about your husband?" Sally laughed. "Yeah, about him, the dear father of our family." Anna clearly had an opportunity to talk, meaning she couldn't stop. "Although, if it weren't for my persistence and cunning, I'd be damned if I had kids now." Anna finally relaxed and even laughed at her own joke. "He kept persuading me to wait, save up, get settled, not to rush. Well, in short, like all men." "And how about you, married, kids?" "Yes, I'm married." Sally nodded, for some reason deciding not to tell Anna about the impending changes in her life. "Well, we haven't acquired little ones yet. I'm falling behind you, Annie." "Oh, well, it's not a difficult thing to do," she chuckled. "Anyway, Sally, I gotta run. Don't go anywhere, okay? I'll be quick." Anna rushed to the other end of the beach with all the speed available to her impressive size, and Sarah started thinking, "Listen, Mike, what are you dreaming about?" She seemed to hear her own voice. "Well, what do you mean, Sally? I want a son, or even better, a daughter. Or maybe a son first, and then a daughter. Or even better, both at once." "Mike, but we've talked about this 100 times. What kids now? I need to get my diploma, get a job. Otherwise, I'll get stuck being a former village girl. And anyway, what's the rush? We have our whole lives ahead of us," she would reply to her husband. "So what? What does that matter? Give me a child, children. This conversation would arise periodically between them, but Sally, feeling that she was stealing something from Mike and from herself, disliked the topic and would end it with a guilty look. No, of course, she wanted children. Maybe no less than Mike, but not now. Later. Much later. And anyway, from Mike? After such thoughts, she would be horrified by her depravity, frightened, and forbid herself from thinking about it. Well, I'm ready. Anna had managed to change. Although the beach outfit, as it turned out, suited her much more than the clearly tight sundress on the woman's ample figure. The fabric was stretched tightly, outlining contours that were not very pleasant to the eye. What, fat? She chuckled. Well, what can you do? Not everyone can be models like some people. She looked Sarah up and down with admiration again. Well, shall we go? They found a spot in a small cafe on the embankment and first immersed themselves in memories of youth and then in the story of their lives over the past years. Anna did most of the talking. As it turned out, she got married almost immediately after settling in the city and had 2 sons. We live with my husband in his district. I'm registered there, and so are the kids. So we live no worse than others. But I still feel like I'm living on sufferance. After all, if something happens, who am I there? Nobody, and I have no name. And my mother-in-law is constantly nagging. And, as expected, about her darling son. She doesn't even hesitate. She says it to my face that I'm a country bumpkin who married her son. Get this? As if I got pregnant just to marry him. No, of course. When we got married, I was already, 5 months along. So what? Everyone does that. But she hasn't given me a moment's peace for 7 years. Can you imagine? And my cooking? You still do it wrong. It's inedible. And I don't raise the children right, and my house is a mess, and my husband is neglected and forgotten, and her beloved son just sits there, quiet as a mouse, as if that's how it should be. Well, in short, a classic story about a mother-in-law and a daughter-in-law. Wait, does your mother-in-law really torment you that much? Sally asked again, not even immediately grasping the meaning of the question. No, I don't seem to have such problems. Eleanor and I have quite normal relations, even good ones. Really? Anna drawled disbelievingly. That's interesting. How so? She doesn't call you a country sheep to your face and doesn't stick her nose in your pots? Well, congratulations. Anna, with a speed surprising for her size, jumped up, noticing one of her offspring trying to climb the railing. The family, namely both boys and Anna's husband dozing on a sun lounger, turned out to be located quite nearby. Left alone for a while, Sally mentally returned to the topic they had just touched upon. Relations with her mother-in-law, Mike's mother, were difficult. Of course, like any normal woman who loves her son and wants him to be happy, Eleanor was not thrilled with such a relative. Sally was the complete opposite of Eleanor herself and realized this immediately upon their first meeting. A beautiful woman who, despite her age, had maintained her posture and manner of holding her head high, with stylishly arranged short gray hair and subtle makeup, immediately struck Sarah. She wore high-heeled shoes, a narrow skirt that Sarah herself would never have fit into even after a year of strict dieting, and a blouse with a satin bow in front. The future bride's heart sank somewhere into her heels. The woman spoke in absurdly correct sentences, articulating every word clearly, and looked strictly and intently, and, as if stitching each word together with a thread, she asked, "Well then, my dear, it's all clear with you. From what, I wonder, did you decide that you are worthy of my son?" She was saved from fainting by Mike, who put his arm around her shoulders and whispered in her ear, managing to kiss her temple, "Sally, don't you die on me. My mother worked as a vice principal at a lyceum for many years. So it's a kind of professional deformation, you understand? She's actually kind and cheerful." Yeah, right. She'll flatten me into the asphalt now and immediately become kind. That's why I feel like a failing student in the principal's office, Sally thought. Of course, what kind of daughter-in-law was she for this grand dame? Surely she had dreamed of her Mikey marrying a city girl from an educated family, with 2 diplomas, 3 foreign languages, and a dozen pairs of stiletto heels. And she was a country bumpkin in a silly skirt. What an idiot! Why did she think that the brighter she dressed, the easier it would be to meet new people? Oh my God! Look, the table is set in the living room. There are 10 pieces of cutlery next to each plate, and she doesn't know anything but a fork, a spoon, and a knife, and that's just a kitchen knife. Listen, I completely forgot, Eleanor said. We'll just sit with Sally for a bit. Of course. The panicked thoughts raced. They forgot the bread. And how can a country girl be at the table without bread? She eats everything with bread and bites off half a loaf at once. This is the end of me. Mike left, and Sarah stared gloomily at the painting hanging on the wall. You seem to be afraid of me, a quiet female voice suddenly said. Honestly, I'm a little afraid of all this too. Maybe we can be a little afraid together, and then get rid of this feeling? Sarah looked at Eleanor in amazement. Instead of a sophisticated villain, a beautiful smiling woman stood before her. Her facial features softened, and even her figure stopped resembling a perfectly upright mannequin. Perhaps I overdid the formality. Please forgive me. Mike says in such cases that the Minister of Education is peeking out of me. She laughed softly and touched Sally's hand. Sally, you must understand me. I just need time to get used to the changes in our lives. Do you understand? I understand, Sally nodded, not understanding anything at all. What did this magical transformation mean? Just a moment ago, there was a wary, suspicious, arrogant old woman, exactly what a mother-in-law should be according to all canons, and suddenly, instead of her, please accept a good fairy godmother. It doesn't happen like that. You don't believe me? You don't believe me? Eleanor, easily reading Sarah's thoughts, sighed. I wouldn't have believed it myself. Just a few days ago, I'll tell you honestly, when Mike told me he had proposed to you, I threw a terrible tantrum. I even told him to choose. Either you or me. Can you imagine? She closed her eyes and winced painfully, as if reliving the terrible scene. Well, and Mike said that he loved me very much, that it hurt him that I was saying that, but he would choose you. That's how it is, Sally. My son loves you very much, and everything else doesn't matter. I don't want to lose him. So let's declare a truce and get used to each other, so to speak. Observe each other, okay? She winked at Sarah. Mom! Mike's voice came from the living room. Are you kidding me? Are you expecting an ambassador from a foreign power? Why did you lay out all the family silver? I don't know what half of these little knives and forks are for. Sally sighed gratefully, but in a way no one would notice. That evening, of course, didn't go like an ideal family dinner. Sarah couldn't completely relax because it was very difficult to believe what she had heard right away. Mike was genuinely amused, poking at his plate with his fingers. Eleanor, barely suppressing a laugh, tried to frown, and Sally suddenly said, Mike, stop it! Behave yourself! After that, everyone burst out laughing. Despite the encouraging results of meeting her future mother-in-law, Sarah's life wasn't easy. Eleanor was frankly shocked by Sarah's complete helplessness as a homemaker. Sally, I apologize, of course, but this won't do. Mike, unfortunately, has a somewhat delicate stomach. He needs a diet and proper home-cooked food. I am, of course, ready to help, but you yourself... Sarah, confused by the woman's persistent refusal to use the informal address with her, had to begin mastering the intricacies of soups and patties under her mother-in-law's guidance. Sarah turned out to be a rather slow learner, and Eleanor had to show a lot of patience and composure. It's quite surprising, Sally, her mother-in-law couldn't resist saying. What village did you finish school in? Do you think girls in the village stand by Russian stoves with oven forks from the age of 5? I don't know how to salt cabbage or cook borscht or fry meat. Well, you'll have to learn, Eleanor chuckled. 6 months later, Mike said, Sally, did Mom stop by? Her patties are still masterpieces. And he froze with a patty raised on his fork. Noticing his wife's triumphant gaze, he hastily added, But yours are okay too, of course. It was precisely thanks to Eleanor's slightly ironic but sensitive and tactful guidance that she stopped dyeing white laundry, a wonderful gray color, when washing, burning innocent Mikey's t-shirts with the iron, and most importantly, learned to dress in a way that finally allowed even herself to appreciate the full power of her feminine charm. Excuse me, Sally, can you take him? Anna, having pulled the budding climber off the steep stairs and handed him to her husband, plopped down at the table. What were we talking about? Oh, mothers-in-law, may they live well in this world and the next. Anyway, how's your health? Everything okay? Not sick with anything? Well, you look great. What kind of ailments could you have? Oh, I don't have a single healthy spot left, believe me. Anna, distracted from her friend, launched into a new story. It was clear that Anna was literally pouring her heart out, having the opportunity to talk. Something shoots here, something stabs there. The doctor says, Dr. Jones, my dear, as if I don't know without her that I need to lose weight. And how can I lose weight when I'm gobbling down medicine by the handful, and then eating to chase it down. And who will let me lie down properly? Last year, I ended up having surgery, on our female issues. And believe it or not, they almost burned the house down without me. They made such a mess in 10 days. When I got home, I didn't know where to start. And the main thing is, they're barely crawling. Mom, do this. Mom, do that. My husband even remembered the word dear. Get this? She laughed. Dear, he says, I don't have a single clean sock left. Can you imagine? But when I was in the hospital, no one even came to visit, brought an apple. Mom! A fair-haired boy of about 7, obviously Anna's older son, tugged at his mother's sleeve and, with a pitiful look, shuffling his feet, whined something under his breath. Toilet. Go with your father. Good heavens, especially since it's the men's. Anna snapped. Will you let me sit in peace? Where's your father? Wait, I'll send them. Anna pulled her son aside. Sarah looked out at the boundless expanse of the sea, and for some reason, new images from the past surfaced in her mind. She didn't get sick often, but each time Mike was as frightened as if she were about to die in terrible agony. At the first signs of a cold, he would lock her at home, pile her with blankets, jars of fruit drink, fruits, and crosswords, and call every half hour asking about her temperature. After several years of married life, Mike's psyche underwent a very serious test. Sally, how could this happen? Mike was almost crying, and it was obvious that if it weren't for the doctors, he would have collapsed to his knees beside her and perhaps wept. His lips were trembling suspiciously, and he blinked frequently. How could this happen, Sally? Mike, please stop. What are you reading? Well, it happened. What can we do now? She looked at the doctor, embarrassed. Dr. Smith, let's go. Your wife needs rest, healthy sleep, and proper nutrition. The fracture is serious. I won't hide it, but everything will be fine, I'm sure. The operation was successful. The main thing is, don't torment yourself like this. The elderly doctor shook his head, obviously believing that the husband was suffering much more than the wife at that moment. Mike rushed around like mad between work, home, and the hospital, where Sarah lay with a complex leg fracture after an unfortunate fall down an icy staircase. Judging by Mike's deliveries, he thought she was starving, and that her main and only task now was to endlessly eat fruits, steamed patties, yogurts, and sandwiches with caviar. Well, Sally, your man is certainly golden, the ward neighbors commented, eagerly helping Sally devour Mikey's food parcels. Just imagine, rushing around every day, calling 5 times, and even standing under the window for half an hour until you deign to look out. Are you newlyweds or something? Newlyweds? Are you kidding me? Sally laughed. We've been together for 4 years already. After being discharged from the hospital, Mike simply devoted himself to Sarah and her recovering leg. He cooked food, did everything around the house, took her for walks, drove her to procedures, and when he wasn't busy with work and endless chores, he simply sat beside her and held her hand. Listen, Mike, have you been working out while carrying me around? She said once, habitually putting her arms around her husband's neck. Well, how else, Sally? I'm carrying my main treasure, not just anything. Mike grumbled then. For some reason, she clearly remembered his words just now. No, can you imagine? Anna returned from her family raid again. They can't even go to the toilet without me, so I'm running after them or with them. Believe me, sitting down, watching TV, never mind reading, is impossible. Did you get your degree, by the way? Yes, in accounting. Good for you. I never finished anything. First I was pregnant, then I gave birth, sent the kids to kindergarten, and got pregnant again. What kind of education could I get? Even if I wanted to, who would let me study? There's not a free minute. Did your husband talk to you? No, my mother-in-law herself. We jinxed it, it seems. Well, daughter-in-law, it's better to answer, report, so to speak. You wait here, I'll be quick. Listening, Eleanor. Hello. Yes, by your prayers. Anna made an expressive grimace and stepped aside. And Sally continued to swirl the unhappy cocktail in the glass with a straw. Sally, we need to talk. Mike had started this conversation 6 months after the wedding. What, are you no longer happy with an uneducated village wife? Sally joked. What does that have to do with anything, Sally? You'll suit me in any form and state. But it's for you, for your future, and for your own confidence, isn't it? You don't really like your current job at the gas station, do you? Mike, I finished 3 years of economics. I'd have to re-enroll. I don't remember anything, honestly. And anyway, it's such a hassle, frankly. I'm a bit slow. And studying wasn't very easy for me. She shuddered. It's no hassle, Sally. You need that diploma. Mike waved his hand confidently. Okay, we have 3 months until the semester starts. Plenty of time. I'll prepare you. And as for yourself, I think you're exaggerating. You're very smart, much smarter than you think. You just had other things on your mind, you weren't focused on studying. So you'll remember everything, and what you don't remember, we'll go over again. It's decided. Tomorrow you go and submit your documents to re-enroll. After Mike prepared her, Sarah successfully passed the testing, returned to the institute, and 2 years later finally received her higher education diploma. Mike, this is more your diploma than mine, she laughed. I think you need it more than I do. Look, you've even lost weight from joy, I see. Now, sitting at the cafe table, she suddenly looked at the question completely differently. Yes, it was Mikey's diploma. Not in the sense of who needed it more, but in the sense that it was much harder for Mike to achieve than for her. Mikey was her tutor for most subjects, fed her while she was cramming and throwing textbooks at the walls, and most importantly, for 2 years, he single-handedly and uncomplainingly worked for their family and for her, the overgrown student. And the joke about Mike losing weight from joy sounded completely different now. He was indeed smiling cheerfully and happily, but there were shadows under his eyes, his face was gaunt, and his favorite t-shirt, which used to fit snugly around his traditional belly, now hung loosely. She suddenly clearly remembered that it was then that he started coming home later than usual. Mikey, have you started going out already? Sarah joked. Got someone else? Yeah, I did, he nodded. Another job, Sally? They offered me an interesting project. I need to build a small factory for a local businessman. If it works out, they'll pay me well. We need money now, and for my excellent student to go on vacation, right, Sally? If you don't need me, I'll eat quickly. I still need to work on the drawings. In that period of their life, he sometimes worked on the drawings until morning. Then he would tell Sally with a guilty look that he didn't have time to make breakfast, kiss her on the forehead, and rush off. After graduating from the institute, she had no difficulty getting a job at a small commercial firm, where she fit in well and was considered a good, reliable specialist. Sally herself enjoyed going to work, where she not only balanced accounts and prepared reports, but also heartily chatted with colleagues, showing off new shoes and suits, or another piece of jewelry Mike had given her, or showing photos from their latest trip. Well, mother-in-law, Anna dropped onto the chair with a thump. Can you imagine we left her our cat? You know, to feed him, clean his litter box. Well, his food is running out, and she says her pension isn't enough for our troglodyte. She asks where to get money. How should I know? Oh, money! May it all disappear. No matter how much you earn, it all goes into some kind of pit. Oh, where's my wallet? Anna threw up her hands comically, started patting herself down, as if she could hide something on her tightly stretched sundress. Oh, where did I put it? Or is it in my bag? Tom! Tommy! She roared so loud that a couple of slowly flying pigeons scattered. He can't hear me. What a deaf old man. Sally, I'll check now. The wallet has the room key. Money. Money? Interesting. And in these 5 years, she had never been in a situation where she had to pay, for example, for the apartment or groceries. More precisely, she had never paid for groceries, utilities, or household purchases at all. Mike always paid for everything himself. And she, Sarah, always had money to buy new boots or a blouse she liked, or even a coat. And she went to the hairdresser with prices that her friend Lucy called completely outrageous. And yet all these years she was the wife of, as she sometimes casually put it, just an engineer. True, a highly qualified one, and even as someone told her in a casual conversation, one who had many job offers. Mike worked a lot, often on weekends, and she had even spent their last 2 vacations without him. Sally, sunshine, you go, and I'll let you go this time, but I need to stay and work. And I'm not tired, he would joke. And here was this very trip. She paid for the tickets and the hotel without thinking. Well, yes, it wasn't the peak season, of course, but the amount was still considerable. She stared at her bank card in surprise, as if seeing it for the first time. The money she earned could not possibly have been enough for the trip. That meant someone had transferred a decent amount to the card. Aha, someone? A good wizard? Don't be stupid, Sarah. This is Mike trying to crush me with generosity. He probably thinks I'll crawl back to him on my knees after this and beg him to forgive me. The village idiot. Well, no way. Worked up, she bit her lip and dialed Mike's number. Hello, how's life for a free man? Breathing deeply. Found a worthy replacement for me yet? Hello, Sally. Glad to hear from you, he said calmly and evenly, as always. Glad? What are you so glad about? Well, keep in mind, Mikey, we still have property to divide. Well, I'll gladly give you your books and your favorite sofa, too. But we'll sell the rest and split the money. You don't object, I hope, that half the apartment's value is mine? Well, at least the part that isn't covered with your stupid wallpaper that I can't stand? If you were a man, you would have repapered it ages ago. Not half, not a third, not even an eighth, her conscience whispered. Mike worked his butt off for this apartment all these years, and it belongs... Sally, Mike's voice sounded tired and hollow. I wasn't planning on dividing anything with you at all. You don't have to worry about the apartment. If you want, you can stay in it. I'm giving it to you. After all, I can live with my mother, and then my grandmother left me a 2-bedroom apartment, so I won't be on the street. You don't say. Well, imagine that. How conveniently everything turned out. She feigned astonishment in her voice, although there was nothing to feign. She was, to put it mildly, already in shock. So, he's giving it up? How noble. Simply a princely gesture. Not princely, just manly, Mike replied. Anyway, Sally, the divorce hearing is scheduled for the 30th. When are you arriving? Don't worry, I'll be there on the 30th. I wouldn't miss the show, she snapped into the receiver. Well then, see you later. Take care, he mumbled. I'll try, for your sake. She couldn't stop being rude, although she had long felt her face burning with shame. She pressed her hands to her face and sincerely wished she could disappear into the ground. She hated herself for every word she had just spoken individually and for all of them together. And everything she had thought about in the past couple of days under the influence of burning shame was like a cool downpour on a dusty, suffocating city, washing away all the dirt and nastiness. Mike, kind, intelligent, noble, modest man. After all, it was he who made her, in the literal sense of the word. And criticizing him is the same as criticizing herself. If she was bored with him, it meant she was bored with herself. It's so simple. He gave you his life. Accept this gift and be grateful for it. And if this gift, is not needed, just apologize and refuse, if you feel unworthy. But she doesn't want to refuse anything, because she loves her husband truly, strongly, and sincerely, and she has, and never will have a person dearer than him. Mike, her husband. Sally, are you overheated? You're so red. Their chairs are something else. I'm afraid to sit down. Anna put her hand on her long-suffering knee and rocked it in place. The wallet, can you imagine? Oh, Sally, they just wouldn't let us talk properly. How are you doing generally? Anna, having finally asked the question she needed an answer to, stared at Sarah. My husband, he's a wonderful man. Kind, intelligent, patient, and generally, Anna, he's amazing. And I'm just an idiot. Anna, do you know how to get a ticket for an evening flight? I need to go home urgently, very urgently, to my husband. I must see him immediately. I need to tell him that. Well, a lot of things. Well, call him, Anna shrugged. Call him and tell him. No, I can't call. I've already said enough nasty things to him on the phone. I need to see him, look into his eyes, and have him look into mine. Maybe then he'll believe me. You're kind of strange, Sally. Anna shrugged her powerful shoulders again. They'll sell you a ticket, but it will be 3 times the price. Keep that in mind. It's okay. I'll earn it back. The main thing is to see Mike as soon as possible. All right, Anna. Thank you. Thank you for everything. For your story, and for your life, and for my enlightenment. Sally jumped up excitedly and unexpectedly hugged her friend. True, she couldn't quite get her arms around Anna's back. No, you're definitely not normal. I didn't understand anything. What are you thanking me for? Anna looked at Sally in bewilderment and uncertainly put her arms around her shoulders. The next day, Sarah opened the door to their apartment. In the hallway stood the person she least wanted to see right now. She had forgotten there was another person before whom she would feel agonizingly ashamed for everything she had done and said. Eleanor looked at her daughter-in-law in confusion and for some reason smiled, guiltily and awkwardly. You were supposed to come back in a few days. I'm sorry I'm here, but to leave you the apartment documents for signing. He's working himself, took some big order. Although, frankly, I think he just doesn't want to show up here anymore. There. And also, she cleared her throat and continued more firmly. Mike asked me to find a team of repairmen. For some reason, he said it's urgent to repaper the hallway. I, of course, don't understand anything. And anyway, it's nonsense to break up with your wife and think about wallpaper. To be honest, I'm starting to worry about his sanity. Well, anyway, I found 2 workers. They'll have a quick bite in your kitchen now and start working. Eleanor, my dear, sweet Eleanor, you don't need to do anything, Sally exclaimed. What don't I need to do? Her mother-in-law was confused again. Nothing needs to be done. I don't need to take Mike's things, and I don't need any documents. And our wallpaper, I beg you, don't touch it. It's the best wallpaper in the world. I just adore it. Okay. Eleanor sank onto a chair tiredly. I was afraid my son had lost his mind, but it seems there's another one gone mad here. Sarah, what is happening? It was happening, Eleanor. It was happening. I was a complete fool who almost ruined my life and Mike's life. But now everything is fine. Eleanor, I love you very much and I'm grateful for everything. And I love Mike very much, and he won't get rid of me that easily. The woman looked at her in amazement and smiled uncertainly. It was clear that Eleanor hadn't completely let go of her suspicions about mass insanity in her son's family. Well then, I suppose I'll go. Sort it out yourselves. She stood up and moved toward the door, but remembering came back. So I'm taking the workers? They're not needed? Exactly. Having seen off her mother-in-law and 2 very surprised workers, Sarah grabbed the phone. Mike, hello, she said, freezing and feeling like a girl calling a man she was interested in for the first time. Hello, Sally, he said. Mike, I have to see you. We'll see each other on the 30th, at the hearing, he replied. No, I won't survive until the 30th. I need to now, immediately. Mike, I'm such a fool. Just impossible. And I need to explain everything to you, tell you and ask you. Ask you, Mike, if you can, don't divorce me. Something rustled and gurgled in the receiver. Mike's voice mumbled something indistinctly, then there was a sound of a thud, and the connection was cut off. And a few seconds later, the phone rang again. Sorry, I dropped the phone. We'll meet, he said. Well, where? At home, of course. At our place. I'm waiting for you under your wallpaper, which I barely managed to save. Come. And half an hour later, Mike opened the door. Slowly, as if feeling the floor before him with each step, fearing it might suddenly disappear from under his feet, he entered the apartment. Sally's heart beat joyfully and suddenly seemed to stop for a second, and then started pounding very fast. And Mike blushed painfully, fidgeting with a bouquet of chrysanthemums in his hands. And for some reason it was clear that he had blushed with happiness.